I don't even want to have a preamble. I want to dive right into this first one because, well, as you're all aware, things are changing within the world of Marvel, and one of their head honchos, Victoria Alonso, was fired. And I say fired because it's been more or less confirmed by Variety. I mean, if you'll bear with me a second, there's an article that they've put out just about today, I think, about this, saying um, there's a little bit of a preamble about the wonderful time she was having at the Oscars, and then it says 8 days later she was fired as Marvel's president of physical production, post-production, VFX, and animation. Three individuals familiar with the matter told Variety. The shakeup came as a surprise to many in show business and within the vast Marvel comic book fandom. Um, Alonso's dismissal has raised numerous questions about behind-the-scenes workings at the Prize content engine, and with them, another unfavorable news cycle as Disney CEO Bob Iger attempts to stabilize his parent company amid economic unrest. I mean, I would call it like crappy content unrest, but each to their own, I suppose. But yeah, like three different people close to it have told Variety that she was fired, so I think we can probably go with that.
It was already a bit sus with how quickly it happened and how little information there was. It's just like,
Normally there would be a press release put out saying like, well, she's decided to move on to pursue other ventures, and we wish her all the best. She's been fantastic, but there really
Great
hasn't.
career.
She's just gone. So she's
looking forward to spending more time with the family.
Yeah. I've achieved what I wanted to in this role, Time for the youngsters to take over.
Time to go on to new challenges. But I mean, like when this news first broke, I didn't fully appreciate the significance of it. Like I wasn't as familiar with her work as you guys. And I say work quite loosely, but she's been with Marvel since the beginning.
She's a piece of work.
Marvel.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. But she, well, my understanding is that as Kevin Feige got spread thinner and thinner over like 500 different projects that he's working on right now, she was able to step up and fill the gap. And she was basically an activist first and a movie producer second. And so she was able to start injecting all of that crap into Marvel. Hence Phase 4, which is what we got. So wow, yeah, she's been a pretty influential figure, and not for the better, I guess.
No, not for the better at all. She was given that president position when the money was rolling in, the investor money. They still had a lot of high hopes for streaming, and this is just my speculation. It was one of those corporate. Let's give you a promotion, not in pay, but in status. And beware of that promotion if you've ever worked at a corporation before, because it's one that can something that's been invented can be uninvented immediately. Now, I think we have to temper this. Things are not going to turn around at Disney because this is more of a condemnation of Kevin Feige than anything else. She was a fall guy. She was guilty. She was guilty of a lot of this stuff, but she's not writing the stories. She might be involved in a lot of the intersectional feminism and a lot. She, as it says in that article, Drinker, she made a brand of her own, being the rare LGBTQ plus woman in Hollywood. I'm like, rare? Are you kidding me? You throw a rock up in the air, you're going to hit somebody LGBTQ in Hollywood. There's nothing rare about that. What's rare is how much power she was given based on solely her identity. She has been a producer for a long time. She did a lot of stuff, but producer can mean a lot of things. And it doesn't mean you're going to be a good leader. Kathleen Kennedy is a great example of that. So I think it is an indictment of Kevin Feige. I think a lot of the responsibility still lays at his feet. This is still a huge firing. And it's because they're losing money. That's it. If they weren't losing this much money, believe me, folks, things are so much worse than they're reporting, as you all know. They're so much worse than they're reporting, and look for stuff to get outright canceled at this point. They're going to have to, because like their big solution now is let's just kick the can down the road. That does that ever help with anything, ever?
But it's like
I was going to say.
I was going to say quickly, they're saying like where there's smoke, there's fire. In this case, they're letting us see the fire. So imagine what's actually happening.
Yeah. Well, I just when you're talking about things getting cancelled, like I've heard from people that Echo is having a lot of problems behind the scenes. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if that gets shit canned because there ain't no demand for that show.
It's already filmed though, isn't it? So
Well, I know, but
Yeah,
so was
they're-
Batgirl, and then they killed that at Warner.
that's the guy at DC though is not quite the same. I imagine. I don't know. Maybe we could see our first ever MCU tax write-off. I don't know. But
Yeah.
The only reason I think Echo's got a chance to still happen is just because it's setting up Daredevil, which is filming right now. So
Right.
that's the only thing. Or it's tied in with that anyway. But no, I mean, Gary's mostly right, other than the only thing I will say is I'm not so sure about when the position was created. I don't know if it was necessarily because they were doing well. I think you're more right about the fact that this was created as a possible fall guy position, because when she was given this specific role, because she's been a part of the Marvel Universe since the beginning, like the MCU, she has been there since 2006.
Paramount did.
Yep, she's been there since the very beginning. She's one of the original people that's always been there. What they did, though, is they gave her this special role back in September of 2021. And it was mainly having to do with the final process of everything, the QC, right? Like she was post-production and delivery, basically, for all this kind of stuff. That was her job. And what have we been having the most trouble with in the last few years, like 2 years with Marvel? The problem has been they've always had to go back for reshoots. The special effects look like crap. We're starting to hear all these people complaining about the last minute they're changing all these things and we have to go back and reanimate them, and we're working overtime and not getting paid for it and all this other crap that we keep hearing from a lot of the animators inside. This all happened right at the same time. It actually happened right between Shang-Chi and the Eternals being released. So I think Gary's more right in a sense that she was being set up to where if this shit didn't stop, Feige knew that somebody was going to have to take the fall, because just before she got this position was when Black Widow came out. And remember, ScarJo was going after the company, and Feige backed her instead of the company. And Chapek came after him. And after it was all settled, Feige said, well, I guess I underestimated Chapek. At that moment, they created this role for her. And this to me reminds me of when Kiri Hart basically had her head rolled for Solo failing. Remember back with Star Wars? So this is what it feels like to me: is you have all these things built up. Ant-Man is going to lose the company at least 100, if not $200 million at this point. There's no getting around that. You can't spin that in the media any way, shape, or form. They tried to hide the failure that was Wakanda Forever. It was a huge failure for them. Sure, it made a little bit of money, but when you compare that to what the first movie made, and when these Marvel movies had a history of going up, and all of a sudden they're going down, 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 down. If you take Spider-Man out of the equation, there's a problem there. Then you have problem number 2, and that was this lady was one of the biggest instigators in the Florida bill. She came out on stage at the Glad and said that she sat down Bob Chapek for 45 minutes and explained to him why this was important.
Yep.
I don't know about you.
How many hundreds of millions of dollars has that ultimately lost?
That
Disney?
right there,
Getting
is the
involved
big
in
thing.
that.
Yep.
Because the second, I'll tell you right now, they said 8 days ago. Well, guess what? The second weekend that Ant-Man came out, it almost lost a cocaine bear. And the only reason I don't think anything happened that day is because that's the same day DeSantis signed away the Reedy Creek deal. And if it wasn't for that, I bet you she'd have been fired that day.
Yeah, stoking the flames of controversy, throwing your basically calling out your boss, and a new boss comes in, and no matter how much he thinks he likes you or you might agree on stuff, he's going to go, well, that bitch called out my predecessor, my puppet predecessor, so she's got to go. Like she was obviously a problem. She was like that. If you ever seen the or heard the audio from that event, from that GLAAD event she was at, where it's cringe, it's bad.
I've never seen anything quite so self-congratulatory and so over-dramatic in my life. It was like, I will never stop fighting for your rights. It's like, come on, man, you're not going to war or anything on this one. Like, give yourself a day off, honestly.
Yeah, you're not Malcolm X. You're at a GLAAD event making pretend with superhero movies. Okay,
yeah.
Calm down.
But to touch upon the point you made about the VFX problems that they were having, there's a quote from them in Variety in this article here. It says, one visual effects artist recently told Variety that the biggest issue for them was Marvel's inability to provide clear guidelines. The show I was on really struggled because it was an established character whose powers they were reconceiving for the MCU, the artist said on condition of anonymity. most complaints they said came down to one problem: Marvel doesn't figure shit out beforehand. And this ties in with
Shocking.
what I've been told by VFX artists that have worked with them. It's like their life is nothing but constant retooling, reshoots, and re-edits basically. Like they'll be given really loose guidelines from Marvel about what they want. They make something, Marvel will come back and say, "No, we want it more like this." They change it, and then they get told again, "No, we've changed our minds. We want it more like this now." And they end up doing the same shot like a dozen times because Marvel can't make up their minds about what they want. That's why so much of their VFX looks like dog shit, because it's had to be redone so many times.
When they've gotten shit tons of controversies from different CG artists complaining, like all coming out, and different people talking about that. That's been a topic as of late, and I've heard theories that that's part of it as well. That she'll be considered like, that was her. You see, she was the whipping master sort of thing, and that now she's gone. So yeah, guys, we're listening. Things are getting better. We're just like, this will change nothing. Like,
Do you think part of the problem as well? Will she have brought in people that have ultimately influenced the stories and the writing of certain movies to include more of their their kind of propaganda and their
so.
ideology stuff?
Because if you
or
rewind,
is she outside
her,
of that?
her and Kevin Feige have brought in people.
yeah, well, and if you rewind, when I said a while back, people are like, "Oh, that can't be true." I said somebody's going around in a big head honcho at Marvel saying they cannot use X-Men anymore as a term. Nobody really believed me, but then she came out later and said that, yeah, I've been saying that we can't be using X-Men as a term anymore because it's too exclusive. It's like, I told you guys, this is who she is. So I guarantee you, she's brought in a lot of the activists into the company. Now she's not the only one, because like you just said, Kevin Feige bought into that Kool-Aid. Esposito or whatever bought into that Kool-Aid. Everybody else who's been there bought into that Kool-Aid too. So that's the problem we have here. So going forward, I don't think it's going to change much, but she's definitely been an architect of trying to push things like, Ms. Marvel. And that's probably the show they're talking about right there in that quote, because that's one of the only ones they've really changed a lot of their powers on.
It had to be Miss Marvel. I mean, I would. It's very arguable if it's she's an established character, because I don't think so. She's a bullshit character. She's like,
well, that's my other point was too. Is I was going to get to is,
and they did.
Alonso was the one who was going around saying these superheroes aren't the character; they're the suit. So we can just keep changing them out. That was her pushing that idea.
This is why we've got like fucking Ironheart and all this garbage. Like, and Falcon now being Captain America.
That's a Marvel thing. That's a Disney thing. Who's solely responsible for it? I don't know, because this stuff was started back in 2000.
She was a big fan of it, yeah.
And I was told by David Gabriel at a retailer summit when I was still working the comic shop. This was years ago, right around when Marvel bought it. That we want the films to reflect the comics. Now, I was naive, and I thought, they're going to make them look more like the comics. No, they're going to make the comics look more like the films. And that's exactly what they've done. That's exactly what they've done. They've pushed into this all new, all different era because they just want mantles. And there's a lot of reasons for that. There is identity politics, there's intersectional feminism, and there's screwing creators out of residuals. There's still a lot of holdover deals, and I don't know what they all are, to creators who, you hear a lot of artists talk about it on YouTube. Like, they get residuals every time one of their characters shows up in a game, shows up in a movie. They get a little chunk of money. It's getting less and less over the years, especially when they rename these corporations. But it is a way to maximize profits, screw over creators, and push an agenda. All three, yes.